Welcome back to the Sam and Beth Variety Show. Today we got another book review for you, The Good Fight, How World War II Was Won. The Good Fight was written by Stephen Ambrose and published in 2001. Does Stephen Ambrose really need an introduction? I mean, he's probably one of the greatest American historians of all time. From the 1960s until his death in 2002, he covered a lot of historical subjects, from historical figures to wars, but he's probably best known for his work on World War II. This book was marketed to kids, or as the inside sleeve says, young readers. But even without the inside sleeve telling you that you're probably too old for this book, most readers will immediately identify it as a kid's book simply because of the heavy use of pictures and maps. As a kid, I remember going through this book and looking at all the pictures and maps and wondering what it would have been like to be there at that time. Reading through this book now has a lot of the same charm. All the pictures and maps put you right there in the spot, and it covers a wide range of topics from the Manhattan Project, Pearl Harbor, the invasion of Italy, and so much more. Overall, I like this book, but it's got a lot of problems. My first issue with this book is it doesn't cover a lot of things before Pearl Harbor, before the U.S. entered the war officially, and there's a lot of war in World War II that happens before 1942. It's a shame that it didn't include a lot of that stuff to help round it out. Another issue with this book, and a lot of U.S. history books have this problem, is it doesn't cover the battles that the Allies lost, except from Pearl Harbor, really. For example, say I want to read about Operation Market Garden, the largest airborne operation ever in the history of mankind. It's not in here. Battle of the Bulge is in here, D-Day is in here, Operation Market Garden, not in here. Why? Maybe because the Allies botched the operation, a lot of them died. Other things like the Bataan Death March, not in here. I mean, I know war is a tricky thing to cover, especially for kids. You don't really want to talk about the bad things. You don't want to talk about the horrors of war. But this is supposed to be about history. This is not supposed to be a propaganda document. Publishers, take note. My third issue is with the maps. I know it's supposed to be for kids, but look at some of these maps. They are way oversimplified to the point where it becomes almost offensive. Look at this map of the D-Day invasion. There's so little information I can get out of this map. And look at all this wasted space. There's nothing even going on here. Maps are a visual medium, a medium which kids can really latch onto. So if you're gonna market a book to kids, make your visuals interesting. Make them good, make them detailed. Don't make them so bland. Don't waste so much space. It falls so short, it's so disappointing. My last issue is with some of the writing itself. It's supposed to be very summed up, short one-page notes about particular operation, things of that nature. But sometimes it comes in this reoccurring process where I could sum it up even further by saying, oh, the Allies had a really hard time with the enemy, but they fought real hard and so they won. It doesn't happen all the time. It's a minor issue, but it does creep up way more than I think it should. These issues have actually led me wondering if Stephen Ambrose really had much involvement with this book. As I mentioned before, Stephen Ambrose died in 2002, which is 1 year after this book was published. The previously mentioned inside sleeve really only gives Ambrose credit for the narrative, nothing else. I wasn't able to find anything suggesting it's someone else editing the writing, but I had this feeling that the publisher shook out a few notes from Stephen Ambrose and slapped his name on the cover, seeing that his name alone would probably sell a lot of books. From what I've said about this book, it sounds like I don't like it, but as I said before, I like this book. It's a good book. It just has flaws. And they're so obvious and simple that it frustrates me, and so it gets me boiling a little bit. But it is still a good book. Parents, if you've got a kid in the 4th grade who seems interested in history, maybe a good book to get them. Who knows? They might really like it. But again, it does have flaws. So I give it a 3 out of 5. Can't go any higher than that. Anyway, that's our review for today. Like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube things. All the YouTube things.